I'm here with Froggen.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm going to do one of my grilled interviews, ask him some things about his career, some things I'd noticed when I did some research, find out what he thinks. So the first thing I wanted to know basically was, like, if I look into the history of your team, like, it's obvious, like, okay, Snoopin and Wicked were in SK and they have their own kind of history over there. A couple of the other players were, like, in lesser European teams. You weren't really that famous before this CLG team, though, it seems, and yet most people now, if I did a poll of like fans or even top players, they'd say like you're one of the best of your position, you're one of the best in the world. So were you really just like a guy where it took this particular team for you to suddenly shine? Like, how could you just come out of nowhere in that sense?
I think it has a lot to do with I've always been playing a lot and I've always been practicing a lot of different champions, so I've been versatile. So even in the teams I wasn't really known in, I could do a lot of damage, and people would not really know me, which would leave an Nivea open, so we would actually win against some good teams, but we didn't win any qualifiers or anything like that. So I think in the end it came down to Wicked thinking I was a really good AP mid player, and then we created a team together after the day he left SK. So basically we picked up the players we wanted and then we made a team from that.
When just before they left SK had a couple of like pretty decent results, like second and third at some IEMs, and so people probably thought like that's a pretty good team. And so when they left, I think initially, because of the people made up in the team weren't necessarily like star players, people wondered like, was this like a gamble for them to leave, etc. But your team's obviously stuck together the whole time and been one of the most successful European teams. Like, how soon did you know like the chemistry's really good, or we're going to be a top team? Like, was it actually when you like got your first results, or was it like, when was it, do you think?
Around that time, me and Wicked had been swapping a lot of players. We qualified for Kyiv, we swapped out 3 players because they didn't really work together. So in the end it came down to we wanted good players, but also players that could keep their mind together and not rage all the time. And like, you know, all the players like Snoopy, Yellowfeet and Cripple, they can all keep their calm and they're not getting mad over things they shouldn't get mad over. So it's basically just come down to us working together as a team, and we basically just want to stick together as long as possible. Then success is, of course, another part that can help us stick together.
If we look at all the teams outside of Asia at the very least, all the top teams, I can only really think of CLG and M5 that have kept their lineup for more than a year. I think nearly all the top teams have made changes. Some of them made tons and tons of changes, like CLG and SK, etc. Some maybe like 1 or 2 changes, like TSM, etc. Do you think there is, like, is it unfair to judge those other teams for like changing players, etc.? Is it the case that you and Gambit, for example, have like some perfect lineup where it's just so great that you'd never think of changing, or do you think you come up against the same problems these teams do when they change their player? Like maybe someone's not playing well and so that's why they would change it, or maybe like chemistry's off for a tournament and you have a bad result. Do you guys really ever come close to changing players, or have you decided like, no, we have to stay with this perfect lineup? Like what's the balance, do you think, for you guys?
I think especially for us, we don't only judge on the gameplay itself, but also how we work together in life. Like, for example, Snoop and Pete is doing a lot outside of the game for us too, and then we're playing even more than they are. That's why they're not playing as much solo queue as we. So basically, it's just working together in general in a daily life that helps us stick together that long. For teams like Gambit, they could have some trouble finding other Russian players because they're full Russian lineup and there aren't that many Russians in high elo, so they have those problems. For CLG, it's more about they want the best players at their roles, and if there's somebody better out there, they just want to get them. It's the same for the Asian teams. They're doing exactly the same. They want the best for the roles and the best they can get, so if somebody is slacking, there's no use for him on the team because they have a manager to take care of all the other stuff, so they just want to win and play.
Is there some kind of special thing that you can gain from having the same 5 though? Because obviously, like you were saying there actually, if someone's like playing a little bit worse, the temptation is to just get a guy who's really, really hot at the moment at that position. But at the same time, if you can somehow break through like a period where your team has some bad results, like then you kind of get a benefit maybe from the experience of so long together. So is there some upside to it that you see that maybe some of these other teams don't see, like because you've had it for so long now?
Yeah, there's definitely some good things about it. Like, we know each other, we know how we are going to react to stuff, how we're going to react to losses and to wins and stuff. So I would say we're not really getting surprised by each other anymore, and we can we have an easier time just saying things straight up and work around those things, so trying to improve all the time. I believe it's the first time we're like losing this many games in a row because we are on a really bad streak right now. But in the end, yesterday we actually played really good together, and I think we found a way around some of the problems. So we're getting back on track.
When Gambit was winning all those European tournaments and always so consistently doing well, I know when I was reading like the Reddits on the results, etc., people speculated like, oh, they must just practice together all the time, or they must be like the best of friends and all the rest of it. But when I've actually spoken to Alex Ich and asked him about like how they run their team socially, he says it's more like professional. Like they only try to kind of like spend time together when they're doing the actual practice, and then otherwise they're not even necessarily so social. Like one of them might not even know if the other one even has a girlfriend or something. And so that's something that people bring up when they talk about like trying to keep one lineup together, is that if you're like living in the same team house and you're like around each other all the time, then that's why it's hard to keep the team together, because if one guy does something a bit annoying over time, that's going to get more annoying, and that's going to make it more difficult. Obviously you guys have actually done that route, like you've been in gaming houses together and now you're living together in Cologne. Is there difficulties in that sense in keeping the team together? Like,
I wouldn't say it's hard to keep the team together. Like, of course there's something about a guy that's going to be annoying, and that's completely normal. I think that's how it is in every single house. Even in your own family, there will be something that annoys you, and you just have to work around it.
Since Gambit is the other team that's kept their lineup for like over a year now, and you guys have played so many times, and it's like, for the fans, it's almost like a dream matchup, because it's even like the two great mid players against each other in Europe. When you play an opponent the first couple of times, maybe they have like a surprise strategy, or maybe you don't know how to play their certain style, but once you've played an opponent lots and lots and lots of times, does it become like games within games, because like you know what they did last time and then they're trying to predict what you did before? Is there like a lot more strategy goes into the opponents you played a lot of times?
I wouldn't necessarily say so, because especially when we're playing against Gambit, they have their own style of playing, and we can predict a lot of their bans, because they have a general thing for banning the 3 same bans versus every single team, because that's something that can mess up their gameplay. So we just want to get rid of those champions, which means we know what we can actually play against them, and we know what we can do to counter their play style, because they're not switching it up a lot. So we're looking into that, but it's not really like we're working out any new strategies like we did yesterday with doing Sin's top and set mid or something like that.
Okay, in that case, do you think sometimes when you play the same opponent so many times, it almost becomes the opposite? Like, you both know each other's strengths, both know each other's weaknesses, so it's more like you're just going to play to your strengths, and then you both know you can win, so you see how it plays out on the day?
Yeah, I think it's mostly like that. When we spent our time in CLG house before the Season 2 finals, we actually had about 1 or 2 weeks of practice only against CLG.NA, and they're known for doing really, really cheesy stuff. So when we practiced versus them, they already had some different kind of cheese bringing up, but they're really the only team to do that. So when we're playing them, it's like a different game every single game, so it's harder to counter what they're actually trying to do, because they have a lot of strats.
Like I mentioned before, since you and Alex have matched off so many times, because you're both so famous as mid players, and your teams have met so many times, like late in tournaments, and there's the rivalry between the teams. It's like a classic matchup for fans. So from your perspective, when you play against Alex Ich, like, what are the difficulties of playing against him? Like, what strengths can you have when you face him? Like, how do you see the matchup from your end of it?
Basically, in general, when I'm playing versus Alex Ich, it's like the most boring mid-lane matchup ever. Because Alex Ich is always trying to take the bulls and the waves, and every single time it's just the guy with the last pick is going to pick a stronger matchup in the mid lane, and then he can outfarm the opponent by just taking the wolves and waves all the time. So basically we're not dueling each other at all, we're just waiting for dragons or team fights or barons or something to happen. So basically we're not doing anything but farming.
When I did interviews with Doublelift and Ocelot, they both say that they think Europe has like the strongest mids. Like if we were to go around each region in the world and say who has the best tops, the bottoms, they say Europe has the best mids by far. Is this like a statement you'd agree with?
I don't really agree with that statement. I think it's pretty spread out who has the best mids. I think it's more about how the teams work together and how the teams perform. Because in Asia, for example, you will see the mid trying to push the mid lane when he's hitting level 4 or 5, and then he will roam with the jungler. and then they will 4 versus 2 gank bottom or something like that, and that's not necessarily any skill matchup in mid you will see then, and that's why you're saying Europe has the best mid, because they're usually dragging out the laning phase and they want to have a long laning phase so they can face each other.
So then maybe a way to put it would be that in Europe a lot of the teams are maybe based around their mid player, like he's like their strongest, or that's like the focal point of their team. So what do you think the pros and cons are to having like one of your star players be a mid as opposed to say the top guy or the AD carry?
I think it's completely fine. Sometimes it might actually be better because there's so many viable mid champions that you can pick either a champion that does a lot of damage, somebody that does a lot of poke, somebody that's actually just supposed to tank or something, because you can play pretty much every single champion in mid lane. So if you're just working around it and looking at the team comp, what do you want for the mid player? I would actually say it's better to have the star player on the mid lane, because he can play anything he wants to, so he can just fit whatever he picks into the team comp. And if he's good enough, he will do good with it.
Every interview I see with you, everyone always is mentioning how great your Anivia character is, and you're one of the players who's like associated by fans with the particular champion. When you're someone where the opposing team, at the very least, consider you like the star of the team, or they're thinking about you when the bans come in, that means that a lot of the games you're not going to get to play with the character where people would say it's your best character, you know. So how different do you think it is for a player where he has to play with like his second or his third or his fourth best champion versus there are other players who might be as skilled as you in other teams, but they're not like the star player of that team, so they can just, a lot of the time, just play with their best champion? Like, how do you compare the two scenarios?
I would say it's a bit different because when I'm playing, Anivia will usually get banned except for the last few days. But so I haven't really practiced Anivia at all for the last couple of months, and that means I will automatically not be as good with that champion anymore. Like, even if I can all the mechanics and stuff, I don't really know the damage output and stuff if I haven't played it for 2 or 3 months, because there's so many changes. So I would say the best thing would just do the Gambit style, ban the champions that will counter your tactic, and then just counterpick the champion you expect the opponent to play, because you can easily expect them to play their favorite champion because they'll be better on it.
Do you ever get the feeling as though you get scrutinized, like more of the spotlight on your particular individual play, because of the fact that, like I said, someone else who might be a similar level mid, but he isn't the star, so he's getting to play like his favorable situations all the time, whereas the other team's kind of focusing on you, or they're thinking about you in particular and trying to maybe 2v1 you or something? Do you think like if you have like just an okay game, fans or people go overboard with like, oh, you know, he has to carry in this game?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes people are overreacting a lot. A lot of the times it's basically just us as a team wanting me to poke before the fight, and that's why I'm getting a lot of spotlight, because I'm playing those champions that can like one-shot the enemy or just poke them off. Like AP Kog'Maw I got a lot of fame for. Same for Lux now, and a couple of other champions before that. And Anivia can catch people really easily off guard too, but now the teams are more organized and they're better at like, straight up engaging, so it's a bit harder now. But basically just doing a lot, not only in the team fights, will get you a lot of spotlight, because usually people watching the team fights can't watch everything at once, so it will be the guys that picking up the kills that's getting a lot of spotlight, and I think that's a bit weird.
So some of the biggest and most famous games of your career have actually been trying to battle against RapidStar of Frost, because you played them in some of the biggest tournaments you've been in. What's that particular matchup like for you, and in terms of how both teams approach it and how like you individually have to play against him?
I actually think RapidStar is one of the only guys that can actually play aggressive while he's not getting punished by the jungler by getting ganked or something like that. He's playing like a lot of mobile champions. He's like, except for Anivia and Lux, he's known for like Diana, Ari2. He's playing a lot of Diana as well. So basically champions that is really good at battling he's playing, and he's doing a really good job at that. So it's always hard to face RapidStar in a 1 versus 1 matchup, and most of the times you will just be forced to back out because you don't want to battle him. So you will take the wolves, the raves or something like that. He's also really good at keeping up the wards, so it's a really hard matchup versus him.
In terms of the opponent, when you face an opponent's team and you know, like, okay, they're zoning in on me very well, like they've got a good strategy against how I'm playing. Which is the team that gives you the most trouble in that sense, just at your position? Who makes it hardest for you?
I would say generally NaJin is doing a really good job at it lately. Cyanide is pretty much known for, he was known for playing Ramos jungler and just rolling over mid all the time, just rolling in that river and trying to get around to mid. And now they're doing it with even more people, where they're trying to push towers early and then group in mid early, and just try to push as many towers as possible with Leona Blitzcrank set up, for example. So they're doing a really good job at that.
Your team became so famous early on for this very slow style, like people saying you never attacked before 20 minutes and all this, you're just trying to farm up as much as possible. Do you think it's the case that your team, do you think you've transitioned well enough to doing like more aggressive early moves, like mixing up what's coming so it's more unpredictable? Like how do you think you've done in that regard?
Actually, I think we've done terrible doing that. The early kills we're gaining is not really because we have a better strategy than them. It's basically just because our ganks are working, and a gank is a gank. It's like he walks to a lane, if it's warded, and you can't get a gank off, and that's basically how we're getting all the kills. When we first got to Korea, we got pretty much smashed down in the first week, lost every single swim, and then we improved, tried to counter all their aggressive plays. So basically it came down to us not playing aggressive at all, but trying to counter their aggression, which leads to now we're still not playing any aggressive things at all, and we don't have enough pressure on any of the lanes because we're all playing too passive, and we have to work around that now because it doesn't work anymore.
So do you feel basically like at the moment like the meta doesn't necessarily suit your strengths? Because obviously a team can know like what the perfect strategy would be, but if your strengths aren't in that area, then it might still not be the right way to play to try and win.
Yeah, I think our style of playing is like, it's over and it doesn't work anymore. And I think especially with all the Season 3 changes, it's so easy to dive towers now. People are rushing Locket instead of other stuff now, so they're like getting a shield and they're getting armor, cooldown reduction whenever they want to dive, and it's making it really easy to tower dive as well. So basically now all the team fights are behind the enemy towers, and it doesn't suit us at all, because we usually only want to fight whenever we have an advantage, which makes it even harder for us to team fight right now, because we barely have that advantage.
You were mentioning before when you were in Korea, and I mentioned you battled against RapidStar in Frost. When you think back to that Azubu final, where you guys looked like for a while like you were just going to win this final over like these amazing Korean teams everyone had been raving about, do you ever think back on that final and think like what could have gone differently, or do you really think like on that day they were just better than you on that day, or do you really think like you should have won?
I think we should have won, and it's something that comes to my mind like maybe once a week or something. That's like, okay, it would have been so easy to win that game, but we actually threw it ourselves pretty much. Like I would say only the very last game in the blind pick, they actually outplayed us. Else it was just us messing up plays, us failing to do easy stuff, so we ended up throwing. And it's something that actually really annoys me, because I would really like to stand on the scene, because it was only one win and we would actually have won that OGN tournament, and that's something really, really huge, because everybody expected Korea to be way better than everyone else, and all the European and all the US teams got knocked out of the tournament pretty much instantly, so it would be something really huge to win that tournament. It's the same in Season 2 finals. It was like one win and we would have gone to the finals, and it would have been huge, and we would have been standing in that area where Azubu Frost stood, and it would just have been amazing to be there. Something that like is something you want to do, and something you're like thinking about a lot. That so I'm really disappointed we didn't get to stand in those scenes, because I feel like we could actually have done it if we played it properly.
Okay, so whenever I've tried to read up on people's opinion, like who is the best team in the moment, who is the best team like 6 months later, it seems like a lot of fans tend to just go with the like easy answer and go, oh, whoever won like the last really big tournament. So they go, oh, Moscow 5 was the best, and then, oh no, Taipei Assassins must be the best now because they won the Season 2 finals. in your mind, if you think back across like the last 2 years of League of Legends, who were like the people in specific time periods who really stood out? Like this was like the undisputed best team in the world. Who was it for you?
I think actually I think the first tournament I actually watched while getting streamed online was DreamHack, and I didn't really root for any specific teams there because at that time I was only actually playing Anivia. It was the only champion I was playing at that time, and I just got up in high elo by pretty much only playing Anivia and stuff like that. So I didn't have any team to root for, but a team that I always had close to myself was CLG.NA, because bigfatlp at that time, he played Anivia, and he was the first pro Anivia player I saw. And actually once the NA server was down, while I was in 1600 elo or something like that, I watched his stream, and him and Dane was actually duo queuing on EU West at that time, and they got queued up against me. So I remember St. Vicious playing Trundle while bigfatlp was playing Annie, and I was playing Swain mid, and I just got completely stumped by them. It was really, really annoying. But it was the first pro player I played against, and was the first pro player I ever saw playing Anivia, so I always had that really close to my mind, and I always got motivated by watching them play.
What about after that? Were there any other periods where you think like one team was just on top of everyone, or was it always 50-50, whatever you think?
After that, I think it's pretty much 50-50. I didn't follow the tournament too much, which means I think Gamescom was after DreamHack.
I mean, in general, though, like if we talk about like general periods, so like 6 months at a time, the next one, like was it really the case that Moscow 5 were like definitely the best when they were winning all those tournaments? Is it the case that afterwards, like I mean, whoever you want afterwards, like who would you say for the other periods of history?
Like leading up to Moscow 5 winning Kiev, I would say CLG.NA was in my mind the best. Then Moscow 5 really had their first appearance in Kiev, and that's around the time where our team was created too, so we thought like, okay, they're really good. They stumped pretty much everyone, and TSM was supposed to be like the best in NA. So I think everybody thought Moscow 5 was like the best and everything, so we had to prove ourselves against them in Kiev. And besides that, I haven't really had a team that I was thinking was really, really good, except like exceptionally good and just win everything. Maybe World Elite now, you could say, because I don't think they've ever lost a match since Season 2 finals, like a tournament game. They won every single tournament they've been playing, so I think they're the best right now.
If we remember back to when Gambit first appeared on the scene, when they were called Moscow 5, when they won Kiev, because it was like a bit of a surprise, I remember some people, even some pro players like in America, saying like, oh, well, you know, they caught everyone by surprise, but it won't be the same when it comes to the CBIT tournament. You know, everyone will have figured out their style and the surprise factor will be gone. Then they obviously sort of stomped that tournament, and then even then some players were like, well, you know, their style, people will figure it out, and then, so people were expecting eventually this style would like drop off or other people would overtake them. But in terms of consistency, I think they might be like the most consistent team ever, because even at this tournament, they're top 4 at the moment. So I don't think they've ever placed below 4th at like a LAN. So they must be like, just in terms of pure consistency. What do you think it is about their style or their players or whatever it is that allows them to just be, you know, never having like a really bad placement? They never have bomb out of a tournament in last place or anything.
I think it's because they're all really enjoying to play the game, and they can't really interact as much with fans, and they're not getting as affected by everything going on around them, and they can just really focus on the game, especially also because most of them are not speaking English. So I think it's just coming down to them playing like pretty much the entire day, practicing together, having their own style, and just playing their game. And that's how they're getting this consistent.
Actually, when you were mentioning before that you were sort of like early on, you were a fan of bigfatlp, basically. Did this make it at all? I mean, the funny thing is, when CLG joined up with as the European organization, people would have said like, you're the star mid player in this organization now, because like he's necessarily known as the star at that point in time. So was it at all weird or awkward, or what was it like to be around someone who like originally was like your idol or whatever?
It's always been funny. Like even in Korea, I actually lived with bigfatlp in the apartment we had out of the gaming house. We lived together in that, so it was always a bit weird. And I think I still have a screenshot from the day he added me on Skype or something like that. It's don't even know why, but for me it's mostly funny because it's players I look up to and I always wanted to meet, and then all of a sudden you're like on the same page as them, you're a pro player just like them. But it gets normal pretty easily and we can scrim each other without thinking about it.
Okay, speaking about non-Asian teams who went over to the Korean tournaments, it feels like so the CLG.NA team who went, it feels like when they went over and they saw like, oh wow, actually these Korean teams are like much stronger than we thought they were, and they're like better than us. It almost made them like a bit confused, or they tried to change things up really radically in their style. Whereas it looks almost as though you guys, it actually kind of proved that your style works really well because you were quite successful with it. So what I want to ask is, the one big team who we've never seen from Europe go over, obviously, is Gambit Gaming. They've never gone and stayed for like an extended period of time in Korea. If they were to go over, just speculating, like, do you think they would just stick with the same style? Do you think it would influence them at all? How do you think it could affect them? I mean, would it be a positive for them to do it?
If you don't think about them having to live together with each other, I think they would keep their own style. They wouldn't change it up too much, and I think their style is really strong because they're playing usually the champions that's really strong at the moment, so they won't really have to switch that up. And they will still draw a lot of bans because of them playing those champions. So I think they can do it with their own style. I think Gambit is just outsmarting people, like doing early dragons instead of tower diving 2 versus 1 lanes early or something like that. So they can always switch it up, and they have a lot of versatility in all of their players. So I think they would do just fine.
You've never played against Type A Assassins in an official game, right?
We played them in a show match in Taiwan for the G1, but except for that, we haven't.
So just as an observer then, like, what did you make of their team overall in terms of winning the Season 2 finals, and what did you think of Toys? Just like, obviously you haven't played him like in an official game.
I think before Season 2, we expected them to... there was 4 teams that directly qualified to the quarterfinals, and they were one of them. And our mindset going into Season 2, after we qualified for the group stage, we wanted to face TPA or World Elite because we saw them as the 2 weakest teams, but both of the teams really proved themselves to be way better than we expected, and we actually even spent gaming a week in Type A Assassins gaming house where we also practiced them a lot, so we actually knew the guys and we were friends with them. So we thought they were like the weakest of those 4 teams in the quarterfinals.
Okay, since you have like a unique position as a European, because you actually spent some time in America and you had like a sister team who was one of the top American teams, I wanted to get your take on who you think will be the best out of that scene, because it seems like they're in a really strange place at the moment, because before LCS, I'm sure a lot of people would have said, okay, so the top 3 teams there are probably like CLG.NA, TSM, and then the third one's maybe up for grabs as to who it would be, maybe Dignitas, maybe Curse. But after what we've seen in LCS now, it's actually Dignitas and Curse that are doing the best at the moment. CLG isn't doing that well. And TSM, basically, even though they'd been doing so well in the American tournaments, they always lost to anyone who was from Asia, basically. So it's kind of like no one has an overall strength above anyone. So if I asked you, just based on what you know about their scene, to guess in a year from now, which team do you think will be the best NA team?
I think it would be Dignitas. Like, they're looking really, really strong, and they proved that they have some strategies that's working really well, and they're winning the games really fast, and they know how to close out the game. Whereas of other teams, except for CLG.NA, they would like drag the landing phase out, just keep getting stronger than them, kind of like the style we're playing too in EG. So, but Dignitas has like showed they have some different things to come up with, so I think they will be the best.
The interesting thing about, if we compare the 2 teams, Dignitas and CLG.NA, is that a lot of people now acknowledge, like in League of Legends, it's more about like the team chemistry between players. Like even if you have a weaker player here, if he works better with your team, it might be better overall. And so they kind of seem like the opposite style of team, because CLG is packed with big names and like star players, whereas Dignitas, a lot of people predicted when Voyboy left, like, oh no, they'll never be as good now. But actually, like you're saying there, apparently they have very good strategies, or they're having like a very intelligent style. What do you think the balance is between the 2? Like, obviously you can't have only like average players, but amazing chemistry. You need some star players. Like, how do you see the balance between the 2 when you're making a team?
I actually don't know what happened really to Dignitas, because they weren't that good when we faced them at MLG Dallas, I think it was. They lost pretty early, and CLG did way better than them, but somehow Dignitas managed to like get really, really good. Maybe one of the things will be taking critic, like being able to like, well, people will tell you what you should have done different or something. Whereas if you are saying that in CLG.NA, people will be like, no, 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 because that, and they have a lot of pride and stuff like that. So I think maybe it's about just giving up that pride and then trying to get the best of possible out of the situation they're in right now, and I think Dignitas is doing a really good job at that.
One of the interesting things I've seen about the way people come up with the strategies for their team is there seems to be two extreme sides to how they do it. Either they have one guy who's like the general and he decides everything and he tells everyone else, and it works because like everyone knows, okay, if he says something, we just do that. Like there's no distraction because a lot of people are talking. Or you can go the other way and people try to be like totally democratic. Like everyone in the team can have their say and they can decide what they want to do. Like from your perspective, which like how is it done in your team, and which do you see as like the more successful approach, do you think?
In our team, it's pretty much after a game we will like discuss what we should have done, or before a game what we're going to do. So everybody is like giving their inputs, and that way we're like forming what we should do, and we're always trying to get like low risk and high reward, or well as high as possible without risking anything. And we're actually doing a good job at that, but I think when it comes to the in-game, when a call actually has to be made, it's always about, can we do that, can we do that? Whereas if you have one guy just saying, do that, do that, do that, it can maybe be even better than if can, because then it will just automatically be a very slow mindset you have. So I think a mix between both of them will be really, really good, and that's what we're aiming for right now, because we're trying to switch it up in our team as well, where we will be like more direct calls, like just do that, do that, do that.
Okay, so being as you're Danish, when I came from Counter-Strike and Quake, in these games, the Nordic countries were always amongst the elite gamers. Like they had the best players, the best teams overall in terms of like the depth of their talent pool. And so there were always teams of all Swedish players, all Danish players. And yet in League of Legends, we see that this really isn't the case. Like we have teams where there's one or two people from different Nordic countries. There's no like elite Swedish team of just 5 guys, elite Danish team of just 5 guys who are like top 3 in Europe. And so why do you think there's this difference in League of Legends in this sense, being as, I mean, you're from this region?
I think it just comes down to whatever game is popular in each country. In Denmark, it's like spread out pretty much, but a lot of people like to play League because it's really, really simple. And I know in Sweden, people have always been loving Counter-Strike, and I think a lot of people are playing that instead of League because it's always been big in Sweden, and you have DreamHack as well, which is always like been huge for Counter-Strike. Then there's Germany and Poland, who basically has like the biggest amount of high elo players, I think. Like, I actually don't even know why they have so many. Maybe it's just because it's like free to play. It doesn't really require anything to play it, as long as you have a somewhat stable internet. So I think that's maybe why it's so easy for both German people to pick up.
Okay, actually, I wanted to ask you now about some other mid players and just get like your take on them. So give me like what you think they're strong at, or what you like about their style, or just some comments from you. So basically, first thing I wanted to ask was, have you been watching the recent OGN tournament, the Olympus Winter rather?
I watched some of the games. I believe OGN Winter actually finished the day we were traveling to Germany, so we couldn't really watch it, but I've been trying to follow it as much as possible.
So what is your opinion of this guy SSONG, the NaJin Sword guy?
I think I actually played against him when I was in Korea myself, when we went 3-1 against them in quarterfinals, and he improved a lot since then. Like, he's trying to be more innovative right now, trying to like play the champion he's good with, and I think he's been practicing those champions a lot to like get a stable amount of champions he can play. So he's really, really good. He doesn't play that much AoE teamfight champions like Ryze, Kale, I know he's really known for. So it's more like single target burst champions that have a good consistent damage. I don't know too much about him, but I definitely think he improved a lot.
What about ambition, the Blaze guy?
He has a bit weird playing style. I got told that he's one of the guys that would always predict where the enemy jungler is. So, for example, if our jungler starts blue, he would know when he's done with red, like the exact time on how fast his jungle playing speed is, and he will play aggressive and passive according to that. So he's a really, really smart player, and he is playing pretty much only strong champions, and he's really comfortable with.
Okay, how about Messiah then?
Messiah is really, really aggressive in his playstyle. He wants to get kills every single time. If he doesn't get at least one kill every single second, he would see it as a waste of time. So when we played in Season 2, he always played aggressive, and all the team playing aggressive, so it will lead him to get a CS lead, and he will overextend quite a bit because he always has backup on the team. But I think he overextends too much sometimes, and that can really catch him. I believe he got caught like multiple times with that in Season 2 finals, which actually messed it up a bit for them.
Okay, this isn't a mid player, but since you were in CLG and you were living with Doublelift for a while, I just wanted to ask you about him. So obviously people say like you have really good mechanics, and like in terms of the raw skill, you're very, very high level, and people always, especially Americans, go on and on about Doublelift, and he has so many highlights and pentakills and all the rest of it. Since you like actually got to live with the guy and know him more intimately than the rest of us do, what do you make of his like skills overall and like his mechanics, etc.? Do people hype him up too much? Is it justified?
I would say most of it is justified. I would say he's also really good at hyping himself up, but one-on-one versus the other AD carry, he's definitely the best. Maybe Wei Xiao from China is better than him in 1 versus 1 matchup, but I know in teamfight, Doublelift has a thing where he's always getting caught by the CC. I remember that's how we won all our scrims in Korea against them, was basically just Doublelift messing up in teamfights, walking into the CC like Aoi charms or something, because I used to play Aoi a lot. I would just throw it out, and it would be like a homing missile where he would like run into the charm somehow. But except for that, I think he's a really, really strong player, and he's playing the champions. He can that has a lot of utility that he can carry with, even with low farm. So obviously Wayne is like his go-to choice right now, and I think most of it is justified.
If you had the choice, so you can choose one of these two scenarios. In the first scenario, the teams you always play against always have another strong mid player, and so on one hand you know that like if I can win this matchup, there's a good chance that maybe we're going to win the whole game. Or you can play against teams where mid's one of their weakest positions, and maybe their strength is at top, or maybe it's the AD carry, and so you're going to go completely nuts and own the whole game up, and maybe you help win that way. Which do you prefer of the two if it's like your dream matchup?
I prefer to play against really good mid players, because I know how to not die in lane and how to avoid ganks. And my playstyle have changed a lot to being really, really aggressive, to being extremely passive, because like I know if I die and then the mid snowballs, that we don't really have a high chance of winning, so I have to avoid that. So I'm always trying to like predict where the jungler is, and if I know he's going somewhere, I will tell my team so they're prepared for where he's going. Also right now, because it changed from support junglers to carry junglers, so mid champions have a way easier time of dying right now, so mostly it will just be farm versus farm, and that's why I prefer to play against a really good player.
Okay, for my last question, I have like a hypothetical imaginary scenario, so it's not meant to be totally serious. Okay, aliens come to Earth, and they surround the Earth and they say, okay, right, we have like the technology way better than yours, so we can just destroy Earth anytime we want, but we really love this League of Legends games, and some of our alien players like really sick at League of Legends, so what we'll do is we'll play Earth. Like, if we win the game, we destroy Earth. If your best team can beat the aliens, then we'll let Earth survive, okay? And they make Froggen the captain of Team Earth. He's going to pick the players. So you're going to be mid, but then you're going to pick the 4 players to go around you. But the problem is, unfortunately, the aliens already killed the rest of EG, so you can't pick any of the EG players. So which 4 players do you want in the other positions for the fate of the Earth?
Okay. I would like Wei Xiao as an AD. for support, I would take MadLife. Okay, so basically just because his mechanical skills is really, really high, he doesn't die a lot, and he can play really aggressive at the same time. MadLife, because the guy has always been good in my eyes, and I actually played games with Azubu Frost in rank 5, like with them itself, because they were like, oh, we'll just ditch RapidStar, we'll take Froggen instead, and then we played. So I actually played lane with MadLife, where I played Blitzcrank, and I basically just have a lot of fun because he was like trolling me so hard, and he's a really good Blitzcrank player, so I would pick him for support. For top lane, I'm not sure who I would actually pick. Probably Magnum. Like, he is known for roaming a lot after pushing up his wave, and I really like that as a top laner, being able to walk around the map and put pressure, so I would take him. For jungle, it would probably be Diamond Prox, just because of his high mechanical skills, and he's a really good player. The only problem with that team will be us not being able to communicate at all.
Okay, so do you have a final message, someone you want to say hello to, thank you, the usual sort of thing?
Yeah, thanks to all the sponsors, Raycon, Monster, Astro, Sapphire, Kingston, Inven. And thanks to all the fans following me and the team, and we're really happy to have all those fans. And thanks to my family as well for following me at home. I know they're following me a lot and watching every single game that's possible, so thanks a lot.
Mange tak.
Selv tak.